month. We're kicking things off here with Shira Hirshberg. She's a registered licensed dietitian nutritionist with All Foods Nutrition, and today we're talking about balanced plate. What is that, and why is it different from some of those other things that you see out there? Let's find out. How you doing, Shira?
I'm doing well. How are you, Molly?
Good. So good to see you, and so good to figure out what we should be eating and how we should be proportioning things and why it's so helpful today.
Absolutely.
All right, so what is balanced plate?
Okay, so the one that I'm going to present was developed at Brigham and Women's Hospital. We use it in our outpatient group, and I loved it, and so I've adopted it and use it with my clients still in my private practice. So
Awesome.
It takes some of the other plates that are out there that are more formatted for, like a whole day, and we can look more at that after, but It really breaks it into a meal-to-meal situation. So this one's breakfast. So as you can see, we've got protein, starch, and we've got fruit. Now, if you want to eat vegetables at breakfast, go for it. There's no bad thing about eating more vegetables, but this is more typical of what people in the United States tend to eat for breakfast. So this is a great way to balance your plate. So with some combination, and the reason this works well together is that you've got fiber, and if you use whole grains here, fiber here. You've got protein, and so that combination will really keep you full, and enough food with this combination of things. Now, when it comes to starches, most people tend to eat things like breads and cereals and oatmeal for, hot cereals for breakfast. Things like potatoes count too, right? Maybe you eat hash browns or sweet potatoes or something like that. So any starchy vegetable would fit just as well here. These are just more typical ones.
Okay.
And then any fruit as well. And if we talk about kind of what portions these are in, it's something like a cup amount of starch, right? Something like the size of your fist. One fruit is fine, or a cup of fruit is pretty typical. If you're getting something like raspberries, that obviously you don't want to eat just one. That would be really small.
That would be weird, too.
One raspberry. It'd be really sad, actually.
An orange or an apple,
Exactly.
or like one banana.
Right.
Or like a cup of blueberries, something like that.
Yeah, and I get a lot of questions about bananas. People are very afraid of bananas, and I think it's more that there's some fear out there because many bananas these days are really large.
That's true.
So when we say
big bananas.
Yeah, I say, small banana is probably a reasonable serving size compared to some of the ones that are out there that are like this big, right?
Oh,
so
okay.
So maybe looking for smaller size bananas.
Or go for like half of a big banana.
Or half of a giant banana,
Okay.
exactly.
All right, good to know.
And then, typical proteins would be eggs, yogurt, cottage cheese, and then nuts is actually a really easy one to incorporate into this side of the spectrum, but often overlooked. So that might look like peanut butter on your whole wheat bread. It might look like some, sliced almonds sprinkled in your cereal, something along those lines.
Okay.
So when we kind of try to actualize this into what a meal would look like, I'm dropping stuff.
You're so excited about breakfast. You're
So excited.
You're actually over breakfast.
Breakfast
You're like,
is my favorite food, actually.
You love breakfast.
So these are some examples of a balanced breakfast. So
Okay.
you notice on this one we've got a whole grain English muffin, we've got some avocado.
That looks good.
I didn't talk about fat. Fats usually kind of go along with meals. They're not one of the major parts, so they're fine to include. It's just not, the basics.
Yeah, I don't see like butter added in here, right? We don't see butter added on. We have like avocado or something delicious like that.
And then we've got our egg. And what you don't see on here is fruit, so it might be nice to have a little fruit on the side of this one to balance it out.
Okay.
You'll notice this one.
Maybe hold this up a little more.
A little higher?
Yeah,
sure.
there we go.
This one we've got some eggs, what looks like some cheese and some fruit. It would be fine to add a piece of toast or something to that as well. This one combines all of them, right? We've got our oatmeal with bananas and nuts. And this one's got our yogurt with some cereal and some fruit. So all three components. And this one's, I think another oatmeal or hot cereal with different kind of nut. This looks like a pecan, and then some berries and peaches. So all pretty tasty ways to have a balanced breakfast.
And so when we're thinking of balanced breakfast, incorporating all those different aspects, if you are looking at vegetables, because we were kind of thinking, well, most people aren't having an omelet, so what you recommended an omelet every single day.
Right.
Like making your own smoothie, that might be a good way if you're like, because I always think, okay, if I can add kale or spinach or something into a smoothie.
Yeah, green smoothies are very popular right now. You can find a lot of neat recipes on the internet. I've got one on my website as well for a green smoothie that I think is quite delicious. So especially if you're one of those people that basically leaves no time for breakfast at home and has to eat it in the car, that's a relatively safer way to have a breakfast.
You have to be careful with that though too, right? Because you don't want to add too much fruit in.
Right, exactly.
Sugars,
1
that
cup
kind of
of
thing.
fruit, again, is kind of the reasonable amount of fruit for a smoothie.
Okay, so you have to be careful in that regard. I always think about that in terms of balancing things. If you want to get those vegetables, but then you don't want to overdo it on the fruit side of things.
So if we think about this again, right, Greek yogurt might be protein you throw in your smoothie, a cup of fruit of some kind, often frozen works really well in smoothies.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the starch, often that gets left out, but you can throw oatmeal in a smoothie. I've got an oatmeal smoothie on that same
nice.
website. And then some people will just have the starch on the side.
Yeah,
So.
kind of helps fill it out too, maybe like whole wheat toast or something.
Yeah, oftentimes people feel less full if they only drink their food than
Yeah.
if they eat something too. There's something about that chewing that helps
Yeah.
us realize we're full.
Definitely, so it's smoothie and something good on the side. Okay, so then for lunch, what are we looking at?
All right, so we're going to move on to lunch down here. So this is the overall balanced plate for lunch and dinner. And most people are surprised by that because they think of lunch very differently than dinner. It looks more like a sandwich or a wrap, and there may be a few vegetables tossed in, but it's really not a big component of the meal. But really, I recommend that it be a big component of both lunch and dinner so that you get enough vegetables in your day. So you'll notice there's tons of options here. A lot of times for lunch, people to grab fresh stuff versus cooked. Just easier, especially if they're taking on the go. Things like bell peppers, cucumbers, tomatoes work really well. These you don't even have to cut, which are lovely.
Oh, yeah, I have those in my bag right now. They just pop them, right?
And when we're talking
Tomatoes,
quantities,
tomatoes.
this is something like 2 cups, which is a lot.
Okay.
But it really helps you stay full and provides all those nutrients we need, vitamins, minerals, all that good stuff. When we look at protein, it can range anywhere from what we typically think of, which is our meats and our fishes, to vegetarian sources of protein like tofu or nuts, nut butters, any of those. And any of the breakfast proteins work perfectly fine for lunch and dinner as well. So these are just a few examples. And this is something like amount the size of your palm when we're talking about a meat. And then with a nut butter, you know, the serving size is 2 tablespoons, and that's a perfectly reasonable amount of nut butter. And then we get into the starch, and this is again that same kind of amount, about a cup or about a fist size amount.
Okay.
Which, you know, scales to the person, different size fists for different size people. And so things like, you know, I have the whole grains on here, brown rice, whole wheat pasta, and then starchy vegetables count in this category too. Things like corn and peas, winter squashes like an acorn squash.
So that counts in the starch category.
Yeah.
Don't get them confused in your vegetable category.
Yeah, and they are vegetables. Technically, they have some nutrient content like a vegetable, but calorie-wise, they're starch, and so it really makes more sense to put them here.
Okay, perfect.
When we're thinking about meal planning.
And it's so nice too in the summer when you have all that fresh corn or those summer squashes to
Yeah.
have those and then have, you know, the pasta and everything else on the side. But you have to be careful, make sure you add in those vegetables too so you have the balance.
Right, these are the non-starchy vegetables over here, and the starchy guys go in that category.
Okay.
So they're healthy, it's just the amount matters more. You don't want to have 2 cups of those, then that would be a lot of calories food.
And again, not seeing really any fats added in on here. So we're not saying like add in the butter or add in the mayonnaise or add in,
And it's fine to use some of those sparingly, but we just don't think of them as a main component of a meal. They're, you know, a little something you add for flavor. Flavor is important. You have to like your food also, but it's not, you know, something you want a quarter plate of, right? It's something you have a little bit of to add some flavor. Olive oil is a great part of a meal to add flavor to things like vegetables, and it can be really useful in that respect. But we'll talk about that a little bit with the Harvard School of Public Health plate. So it's something we kind of assume the fats are incorporated into either the protein or the vegetable.
Okay. And so what does a decent lunch that we're maybe packing and bringing to the office or something like that look like?
Okay, so here's a picture of some lunches. And so as you'll notice, this one actually has a veggie wrap of some kind. It has some more veggies over here. These are starch, and then there's some fruit. So it's fine to incorporate fruit. I didn't mention it. It's not a problem to have it. It's just, you know, we kind of focus on the vegetables because those are harder. Most people want to eat fruit and they'll get enough.
Yeah, it's easy to eat. It's easier to eat fruit rather than it is to vegetables.
Exactly. So what we'd want to make sure here is that there's some protein. And my guess is that, you know, assuming there's some protein in this wrap. So maybe some cheese, maybe some, a little bit in hummus, but you'd want some protein in there. This one, you'll notice there's a little bit of sandwich and a little bit of a salad. Salad is nice if you struggle getting the vegetables because you don't have to prepare it. You just throw it on your plate. You notice they have the non-cutting tomatoes and a little bit of dressing. And then they've got a sandwich here which has, you know, their protein inside. This one, again, that's a wrap, so you see your meat and your cheese, your protein's quite obvious. The wrap is the starch, you've got some fruit. You know, they don't have a lot of vegetables in this one, so that's what I would really add. I would take these peppers over here and throw them on this to go with the fruit, and then this granola bar of whatever kind. This one's really nice because you'll notice there's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You've got your fruit, your vegetables, and then this appears to be a yogurt of some kind. So you've got a pretty good mix of things. You know, in a perfect world, we'd have more veggies than this. This doesn't look like a whole lot, but you know, some good examples, and there's some fruit in this one. So,
and it all looks pretty relatively easy and simple to prepare.
Exactly, and that's the key.
And be able to portable as well.
Exactly.
And so dinner, when we think about balanced plates, whenever you hear an idea like this, you usually go straight to dinner, but you just presented two fairly simple ideas for breakfast and for lunch to be able to incorporate balanced plate into those meals before. And now we're going to move along to dinner. So this is where it comes into, that was breakfast.
Now we're at dinner.
Now we're talking about dinner. So what are some of the proportions that we're looking at for dinner time?
Same as we just looked at for lunch. So this just shows us again, all those veggies over here. We've got our protein and then our starch. So quarter for protein and starch, and then a half for the veggies. And most people feel more comfortable with this at dinner, right? It seems closer to what they already do. Maybe those proportions aren't exactly the same, but most people already have some vegetables. It's just about expanding that category and making these guys usually a little bit smaller. And so we've got some examples here, right? You can see this person just has lots of broccoli.
A lot of broccoli.
A little tomatoes. A baked potato is their starch, so starchy vegetable. And then this looks to be a tuna or something along those lines. And then if we look at this one down here, we've got our green beans. I would say maybe not quite half, but we're getting close. Their starch is, it looks like a sweet potato. And then we've got, it looks like a fish down here, maybe a meat. This guy's, we've got shrimp. We've got a lot of veggies in terms of asparagus and tomatoes. And again, that's, I would say the shrimp is sneaking over onto the veggie half of the plate. And then we've got some rice.
I mean, it seems like if you do all these and you do them right, if you're doing the 3 meals, it seems like you would be full.
You would.
It seems like a lot of food. Like, to me, this looks like a decent amount of food.
It is, absolutely. And like I said, with that fiber, it really fills you up. So that really helps. But a lot of times people will, if they're trying to lose weight, skimp on the carbohydrates, right? The starches. They'll cut that out completely. They'll just have more protein and a lot of vegetables. And sometimes that works for some people, but there are a lot of people who don't feel very full. And so if in 1 or 2 hours they're still hungry, it's probably because of that missing starch. And often if you're snacking later, you're not choosing a better choice.
Oh, you're not going for the carrots.
Than you would have had with your dinner. So sometimes including a healthy starch is really important to people feeling full throughout the evening.
Okay, so that usually, that can be very helpful. Yeah, because I'm thinking this all looks like a good amount of food and all healthy choices that you're making. So having that balanced plate can really help.
And we're approaching cookout season, right? We're not quite there yet, but people are probably starting to think about it.
Getting out the grills.
And that can be really hard for portion management for people because there's just all this food laid out. And so if you approach cookouts this way, even if you get a second plate, it's really hard to way overdo the calories because all those veggies fill you up.
So, I mean, when you're approaching this with people who are coming to you and asking for help, do you recommend literally getting a plate that has this? You know, I mean, kids have these kind of plates, right? That have this section and the section and the section.
They do absolutely exist. You can order them on Amazon. You probably don't want enough. You probably have one, right? You don't want to like fill all your plates would be that.
Everybody gets a balanced plate.
But for some people, it can be a really good learning tool to help them get started. And some of those plates have actual kind of edges that come up, so you literally fit it in there. Some just have visuals that you cover over, kind of like a kid's plate. It has animals, right? It's similar, but like vegetables are half the plate. So
put your salmon on the dog.
It can be a very helpful tool for some people. I'd say most people, because this is a fairly simple visual, half, quarter, do fine without it. But absolutely, if people are real visual learners, it can be nice to have that.
So, and when you're working through this and you're approaching this concept, I mean, is it bad if you just don't want this stuff, or is it a process to work through eating certain vegetables during the day or eating fruits and kind of working through it?
Well, yeah, so what I usually do with clients if we're talking about how to make this happen is that we brainstorm a list of all of the vegetables they like, and then sometimes we have to really look at recipes, ways to cook them, think ways to make them interesting. Johnson & Wales actually has a cooking class. It's a vegetable cookery class.
Oh, neat.
And so there are some places where you can get help, but I also just, looking up things online, the internet's a great resource now. I like New York Times Cooking. They have really great options. You type in asparagus and all of the asparagus recipes comes up. But, really, if you want just a simple thing that tastes good, olive oil really fixes most of your problems.
It will help with everything.
Vegetables roasted with olive oil taste a lot better than plain vegetables. There's no question about that. And, people are really afraid often to add things to vegetables because they feel like they're losing out on their nutrition if they sprinkle a little cheese on their broccoli. But I think if it gets you to eat a half a plate of broccoli, it's worth it. Put a little Parmesan cheese on there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like this. I think the headline of this is going to be olive oil will solve your problems. Right? Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about you had a couple other samples of the different plates. Tell us how balanced plate is different and kind of your thoughts on all of them.
If we look at kind of some of the things publicly available for balanced plates, we've got the USDA, right, which is choosemyplate.gov is where all the information is. This is the United States recommendation for a healthy plate. And it's great in terms of a general setup for your day, but it's just a little confusing if you think about it meal by meal. So that's why I have this more specific approach, but this gives you, like, when you're thinking about an overview of your day, you want half of what you eat to be fruits and vegetables. You want, a little more than half of this side to be grains. We've got protein, and then dairy is included here as well. The USDA always has a strong focus on dairy. So it's in there. What's interesting is if we compare to the Harvard...
I never really thought about that, but yeah, you're right.
And, dairy has some great properties, but obviously it has, things we have to be careful about as well. When we look at Harvard, it's a little bit different, right? You notice there's no dairy on here. We've got healthy oils, so that's where olive oil comes in. And then you'll see the vegetables portion is larger. And when you look at the one on the USDA, that's also true, but it's more obvious here visually.
More obvious there, yeah.
So fruits are important, and they do talk about colors here, which is great because a variety of colors is really good. And you'll notice this says whole grains, 100% whole grains.
Oh yeah, and this just says grains.
Yeah, I recommend that as well. I think having some refined grains for fun, play food is fine, but your general diet should be whole grains. The USDA, if you look at their official recommendation, it's make half your grains whole. So I think they're kind of hedging between what they think people will actually do. But Harvard doesn't care. They say this is really what you should do. So
they're like, we just go for it.
And then they focus on healthy protein. They just make that distinction. It's more lean proteins compared to things with higher fat content. And then you'll notice water is on here as well. So they just add a couple of different things to focus on.
Wow, they're going for it. They say with little or no sugar. They say just avoid. Get everything out of there. Avoid sugary drinks. It's interesting.
Yeah.
And
they don't touch on this one at all.
Oh, wow, they don't. So in terms of the balanced plate, when it comes to, are we just looking at, I feel like everybody should know, just drink water, right?
I don't know. I think that juice for a long time was perceived as healthy. And so maybe people who are used to that message still don't understand that juice is problematic. And it's just because our information has changed over time. And so people who learned about nutrition a long time ago, they maybe haven't gotten that message yet. But yeah, certainly water is the best thing. There are ways to spice up your water. Maybe we could talk about that at another show.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll go through them. Okay, that'd be good.
But certainly the water should be the foundation of what you drink.
Okay. And when we're looking at the balanced plate methods, a lot of people snack throughout the day. I'm one of those people. I like to have snacks to get me through. Can we use the balanced plate to look at different snack options?
Absolutely.
Whether it's incorporating different proteins, or can we use that and think, okay, well, this would be part of this plate or this would be part of that plate?
Yep, let me grab our snacks.
So we have a snack section. Awesome.
When it comes to balanced snacks, the way I think about that is that you want at least 2 food groups involved.
Okay.
So you'll notice these examples. We've got fruit and we've got a protein, then we've got peanut butter here. This one's got cheese and fruit, right? We're getting this theme, right, of protein and fruit. And that's, like I said, that's where a lot of people get their fruit. They'll maybe have some at breakfast and maybe one for a snack, and that's their fruit for the day. This one gets some vegetables in, so if you find that 2 cups at lunch and dinner is too much for you, snacks are a good way to fit some in. This is with hummus. This is another fruit-nut combo, right, with whole nuts and then some berries. And again, this is a grain-nut combo. Nuts are really easy for snacks. Of course, if you're allergic to nuts,
then
don't eat
nuts.
those.
Not so easy.
Seeds can substitute in that case. They can be really useful. And then also dairy comes in a lot with snacks just because it's portable and quick and easy. String cheese is a very easy one to have. So this is like a whole grain cracker with some peanut butter. So those are some ideas. So it's thinking about those 2 food groups. Usually incorporating a fruit and vegetable is a great way to go. But if not, using any of those other components, a whole grain and a protein, The protein will keep you full. So if you are going at least a couple of hours before a meal, then it's nice to have a protein or a healthy fat. Maybe, you know, the hummus I would call a healthy fat in there to keep you going. If you do just a fruit or just a vegetable, it's not going to take you very far. Maybe 1 hour tops.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Yeah.
Great. All right, Shira Hirshberg, thank you so much. This has been super beneficial. I think just kind of last question is, do you think that this is apt to change, or have you seen kind of this message stick over the past couple of years and seen it move forward? Do you figure this is going to change at all anytime soon?
I don't think so. I think these are some real basics that we see across all of the recommendations. So if you look at recommendations for reducing your risk of cancer, reducing your risk of heart disease, even preventing, you know, further heart disease. Let's say you've already had a heart attack and you don't want to have another one. Yeah. All of these recommendations include these sort of things. If you look at the DASH diet, the Mediterranean diet, they really all include a lot of vegetables, healthy protein, fruit, and, you know, reasonable whole grains. So that's, I think, pretty stable recommendation. I don't expect to change anytime soon. There are these nuances, right? So which type of fats are most important, how many omega-3s, but I think the basics really have been fairly stable for a long time, so I don't see those going anywhere.
So good information to stick to and reliable. I like it.
Absolutely.
All right, Shira, thank you so much for joining us. You're going to come next week and we're talking sugar, right?
Yep, sugar.
Oh, so if you have any questions, let us know. We're going to talk all things sugar and so much to get into with that. Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to get this